Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here. We are all caught up with our battle reports for our Warhammer Fantasy campaign and for the other games that I have done over the year, so it's time to do something else. California is still following the stay-at-home rules, so I thought this was a perfect time to bring out my old copy of Warhammer Quest. Normally, I'd rather not play games solo. I prefer to have a group of people, but it's been hard to coordinate a game for this. And besides, you can't really do it anyway when everyone's trying to be safe and stay away from others. So I'm going to bring it out and I'm going to play a solo game right now. Since I've already done a solo game with the original contents of the box, I thought I would bring in a couple of the expansions for this game. So I'm going to bring in some new characters, and I'm also going to use the cards from the Lair of the Orc Lord. So there'll be some new bad guys as well. Our first hero is going to be Dursus. Dursus is a witch hunter. I used the witch hunter quite a bit back in, the 1990s, back when I was in college. I always liked their goofy hats and their fanatical way of doing things. Unfortunately, he's not great, at least not compared to some of the other characters, but for this first group, I wanted to have a group of the human good guys. If they don't do so well, maybe I'll bring out the human bad guys, or maybe the elves or the dwarves or something like that, but for right now, I wanted to start with a party of more or less do-gooding humans. The first thing about the Witch Hunter is his wounds. Now, he gets to reroll 1s and 2s for his starting wounds, but he rolls 2d6, so you could still roll a really miserably low number. On this guy, though, on Dursus, I lucked out, and I actually ended up with 11 starting wounds, which is just about as high as you can get. He's also got d6 faith tokens, and those are really handy. Those allow you to add 1 to any of your dice rolls throughout the game. When you're rolling for these, you also get to reroll 1s. I ended up with 4 of those, which is not bad. Finally, he gets d6 amulets, magical amulets, that do different things. They're used 1 per adventure, and they do just small things like give an extra attack, do a little healing, extra strength, that kind of thing. Again, you get d6 of these re-rolling 1s. Again, I roll pretty well. I get 5 amulets, so I get every kind of amulet there is except for the healing one. Now, that is too bad. It is really nice to have some kind of magical healing in the group. So if your dedicated healer goes down, you can bring that guy back up. I didn't get it, but it's still pretty good. So what this character means is that when I want to expend all these amulets and these faith tokens and everything like that, he can have a really, really effective round. He can unload a lot of damage, especially on one big monster. Unfortunately, other than that, he doesn't have a lot of offensive potential. He's just got his basic sword. He's weapon skill 3. It does d6 plus 3 wounds. His toughness 4, which is okay, and I rolled up a pretty decent amount of wounds, so he's okay in defense. His offense is pretty blah. He does have a pistol, which does a lot of damage if it hits. His ballistic skill is only okay, though, and really, you don't get a lot of opportunities to use missile weapons in this game. And you have to spend an entire round not moving, not fighting, anything like that in order to reload it. So I have high hopes for this guy, but really, he is a middling bottom tier kind of character. Next up, I'm taking a warrior priest, this guy named Cleric Grodvalka. Both these are names from an old role-playing game that I actually still play, but they're old characters. For his wounds, he gets 7 plus d6. I rolled a little bit lower than average. I got an extra 3, so he's at 10 wounds. He's going into battle with his Holy Book and his Ring of Jade. So the Holy Book is like a spell that you can cast every round. You can give someone a reroll, you can give someone a +1 to hit, or you can give someone an extra attack. I think there's no reason not to always go with an extra attack. You roll a d6 and you add the power score for the turn. If you roll 7 or more, you get it. So it's a little bit more reliable than some of the wizard spells. I mean, you always have a chance to fail. A 1 always fails, so that's not great. On the other hand, on the roll of a 1 when an encounter occurs, you at least have a 1 in 6 chance of actually getting a blessing off. In addition, you have the Ring of Jade, and that's an unusual magic item. So at the end of the hero's turn, you can roll 3d6, and if you get doubles, then you can heal the amount of that double on any of the characters. You have to say which character you're going to try and heal ahead of time, because if you roll double 1s, then you actually harm all the characters you're trying to heal for 2 points of damage. So you could have a character that's really close to death, and you try and bring him up a little bit, and then instead you finish him off. I went and figured out the odds of actually getting a double on 3d6, and it looks like it's just a touch less than 50% of the time. So there's definitely some wizard spells that are more reliable as far as healing goes, but there's also some that are worse. I'm hoping this guy kind of replaces that wizard type character as far as healing goes and helps keep my people alive as we stomp through the underground. Other than that, he's kind of bad. He's weapon skill 2, he's just got his hammer which does d6 plus 3 damage. He has armor, but he's only toughness 2, so that only brings him up to like toughness 3, and his initiative is 2, which doesn't really matter that much, but it's not great nonetheless. So he's not really like a warrior priest from the Warhammer fantasy game. He's more like a Healy wizard because he is really not much of a combatant. Next up we have Brom Brogelmeister. He is my Imperial Noble. For wounds, I rolled really badly. I get d6 plus 7. I rolled a 2, so he's only starting off at 9 wounds. With only a toughness of 3, he could be a really vulnerable guy. He has an ancient heirloom, so one type of monster that you roll for randomly has a -1 to hit the Imperial Noble, so that'll help a little bit depending on what I roll. In the end, I roll Skaven and Giant Rats, so they're going to have a harder time hitting my Imperial Noble. He also has a pistol. It's a dueling pistol. It's a little bit interesting. It also does a lot of damage, but all you have to do is roll above the number of squares away that your target is. It kind of makes me think you can use it against a monster that's right next to you, but I think there's a rule against using missile weapons when you are pinned by another monster, so that's probably not the case. So if something's only 2 squares away, I could hit it on a 3+, otherwise it's a much harder shot. And again, you have to spend an entire turn reloading it. The interesting thing about this guy is his weapon. So he's got his rapier, which only does d6 plus 1 damage, which is bad. It's real bad. But so long as I keep hitting, I can keep hitting again. So if I score a hit, and even if I don't do any damage, I can go and I can try and hit again. So he can keep rolling and rolling, rolling until eventually he either kills what he's fighting or he fails to hit. And with weapon skill 4, you're hitting most things on a 3+. On the other hand, you can't do the death blow rule, where you kill one thing in a single shot and then carry on to the next model. You can't do that. This rule replaces it. So best case scenario, he can keep swishing away with that blade of his and just nickel and diming big monsters or cutting down small weak monsters until you end up missing. Worst case scenario, you can hit as many times as you like, but if you don't roll above the monster's toughness, then you're not doing any damage at all. And finally, we get to the Bretonnian Questing Knight, Cerset. Now, this guy is a bit more beefy than these other guys. He has d6 plus 7 starting wounds. I rolled a 4, so he's going to start with 11, which is not bad. Nicely, though, he has a toughness of 5, so it's going to be hard to wound him in the first place. He also has this phenomenal weapon, the broadsword. It does d6 plus 6 wounds, so whatever he hits, he's probably going to carve it in half, and with a weapon skill 4, he's pretty likely to hit. He also is a questing knight, so he has a particular quest. In this case, he's trying to find a magical suit of armor. So every time we pick up a magical suit of armor, we roll d6 on a 5+. I say, that's mine, and I get some special benefits for completing the quest. We also get a favor from a local Bretonnian maid, and I roll for that randomly, and I get the milkmaid's favor, meaning once per adventure, I get to re-roll a single die, which is not the worst favor you can get, but it's also not the best. This guy is not bad at all. He's one of the better characters that you can run, especially if you're good at making your dice rolls. He basically gets 1 attack a round, so if you miss, you're doing nothing and you're just kind of wasting your turn. But if you hit, you're going to do a gigantic amount of damage. So something like the Barbarian is going to cover your bases a little bit more. He doesn't do as much damage, but he gets more attacks eventually. But in a lot of ways, he's just the dwarf from the starting set, only a little bit better. Speaking of dwarf, you may have noticed that I have given this guy the rope. The rope is normally carried by the dwarf in the adventure. It's for when you get the pit trap event card, and so that allows you to haul someone out of it. I could have just taken the pit card out of the deck, or I could have just left, if we get that one, someone just dies. Instead, I gave the rope to the questing knight so that if that happens, I can haul someone out. Also, since we don't have the barbarian, someone else gets the lantern and becomes the leader. I decided the Imperial Noble, since he's a noble and he should be in charge, or at least that's what he thinks. He gets the lantern, and now he's the one in charge of exploring and going first every round. So the next thing to do is to take all of the objective room cards, shuffle them up, and draw one for the mission. Now I've included Gorgut's Lair from the Lair of the Orc Lord box in here, but I ended up drawing the Fire Chasm instead. And so we go to the Fire Chasm chart in the adventure book, we roll a d6 and find out that our mission is the bridge. So my heroes have gone and recovered an ancient dwarven relic, some kind of crown or something like that, and we're escaping away with it. And a bunch of bad guys are following us. So we've got to go through our escape route through this underground cavern. We've got to get across the bridge in the Fire Chasm, get to the other side, and then destroy the bridge. Now that part's not so bad, but I have done Fire Chasm adventures before, and there is a problem because when you cross that bridge, you roll a d6, and if you roll badly enough, you can actually die in the process. We actually had an adventure once where the goal was to get the dwarf to the idol on the other side of the Fire Chasm. And we were doing real well, we're fighting all the monsters, we're beating them up, and then finally came time to get the dwarf over to the idol, and the dwarf went and slipped through a crack in the bridge, fell into the fire, and died. And so everyone else just kind of shrugs, and we went home. So that can be a problem. But I think this is a very doable mission. So we take the Fire Chasm card, shuffle it in with 6 other cards, put those at the bottom, then we deal 6 more cards on top of that, and we get our starting adventure room deck. So I draw the first card and I get a T section. Well, this could be great and it could be terrible, because what happens with a T section is you take all the adventure room cards and from the bottom you deal them all down into each path of the corridor. So if you're lucky, you've just shortened your adventure by half. And if you're unlucky, then you're going to have to go through almost every room in the deck until you find this particular objective room. So we'll see. For right now, I can place my guys anywhere that I want, so I pile them all over in the right-hand section of the T section. We're going to peer through that right away and get this adventure moving. The game starts, and the first thing that we do is we roll for the power score, and I roll a 1 right away. We're going to start it off like this. So on a 1, you draw an event card, and in this case, it's the Spore Fungus. The Spore Fungus is really not so bad of a card. So on a roll of a 1, then your warrior falls asleep for d6 turns. On a roll of a 2 through 3, then you take d6 wounds with no modifiers for toughness or anything like that, which isn't great, but you can recover from that. On a 4 through 5, you actually recover d6 wounds, which isn't going to matter because they haven't been hurt yet. And on a 6, you get some magical mushrooms and your +1 strength for the rest of the adventure, which is phenomenal. The bad news is then you then draw another event card immediately. So I go and roll for everybody, and I'm thinking so long as I don't roll 1s, then I'm doing all right. But guess what I do? So, first thing off, Brom Brogelmeister, my Imperial Noble, goes and falls asleep. And I roll for how many turns he's going to take a nap for, and it's 6 turns. So, no exploring, no getting through that passageway, nothing like that. So we're kind of stuck for 6 turns. I go and I roll for Cerset, my Bretonnian Questing Knight, and he gets healed. It doesn't matter, he's not hurt. Same with Cleric Grodvalka, also gets healed. It doesn't hurt, but at least they're not taking damage or falling asleep. Speaking of falling asleep, Dursus, my Witch Hunter, goes, and he also rolls that 1, and he also rolls 6 turns, the maximum amount of time. So I've got the 2 people in front there. They stepped in some nasty fungus, and it hit them both in the face with some sleepy spores, and so they're going to take a long nap. In D&D, you'd call that a long rest. And for a whole 6 turns, and Cerset and Cleric Grodvalka have just kind of got to deal with it, because they can't move past them, and they can't explore without that lantern, so okay. And just to make sure that those guys aren't bored waiting for those 2 to wake up, we go and draw our second event card, and it's Scabnose the Shaman and Minions. So Scabnose the Shaman is an Orc Shaman from the Lair of the Orc Lord. This is going to be interesting. I haven't used this card before. I roll up a random number of minions for this guy. He ends up with 3 orcs. So Cerset and Cleric Grodvalka have got to fight these guys while the other 2 have their power nap. Good luck, guys. From what I can figure, the shaman gets placed far away from the warriors, and of course the orcs are going to go straight in there, so that's the way it goes. This actually could be worse. If my fighters were stuck behind the sleeping guys, this could be a nightmare, but at least my fighters are where they can actually do something. To start off my turn, the cleric goes for Blessing, tries to give Cerset another attack. I need a 6 to do it, I don't get it. Cerset has the higher initiative, so he's going to go and try and chop up those orcs and starts off the turn in grand style by killing off 2 of them. And even Cleric Grodvalka helps out a little bit by putting 1 wound on the last remaining orc. In the monster phase, the first thing that happens is Scabnose the Shaman is going to cast one of his special spells, and he rolls up Help Dem. So all the orcs on the board section get an extra attack. Fortunately, that's only one of them. That orc is currently fighting Cleric Grodvalka. It manages to hit once, but only does 1 damage, which is pretty lucky. So it's back to my turn. I roll up the power number, and I get a 6 this time, which is fantastic. It means as long as I don't roll a 1, I'm going to get my blessing off. I go and bless the cleric, so I give myself an extra attack. The thinking being is that Cerset is probably not going to escape pinning to go and attack the shaman, so he is probably going to kill that orc. So if Cerset kills the orc, I would really like the cleric to go and put as many wounds on the shaman as possible, and so I give him the extra attack. Sure enough, the Bretonnian Knight does not disappoint. He kills that last orc. I did try to escape pinning to go and attack the shaman directly. I couldn't make that roll though. Anyway, the blessed Cleric Grodvalka goes and runs up to Scabnose, and he bonks him for 3 wounds, which is pretty good for the old man. So now it's back to the monster's turn. Scabnose the Shaman gets a spell, and he rolls up Trip. I choose a warrior counter, and I get the knight, so the knight falls down. The only bad thing about this is that any monsters now get a +1 to hit him, but since Scabnose is the only monster here, that's not really going to affect me that much. So anyway, Scabnose goes and tries to beat up my poor cleric. He does manage to hit him and cause 2 wounds, but we're still doing all right. And hey, we're already a third of the way through the Witch Hunter and Imperial Noble's nap. So it's my turn again, roll for the power number, get a 5, which is also great. This time, Cleric Grodvalka goes and gives the extra attack to Cerset. So Cerset picks himself up off the floor and goes charging into Scabnose the Shaman. He manages to put 3 wounds on Scabnose, which is really not all that much considering. Scabnose the Shaman is toughness 5 though. The cleric does hit, he doesn't do any damage though. He goes for that Ring of Jade heal and fails to do it. It's Scabnose's turn again. We're going to find out what spell he does, and does Trip again. So we draw a warrior counter at random, and I guess those 2 in front were sleeping on their feet because he has gone and tripped the Imperial Noble. So Brom Burgelmeister hits the floor, but that doesn't matter. He wasn't doing anything useful anyway. Scabnose swings his sword at Cleric Grodvalka, but misses. Brand new round, power phase is 6 again, which means we're probably getting another bless off, and sure enough, we get an extra attack for Cerset, who goes and promptly misses Scabnose the Shaman twice, which is kind of incredible because he has 2 attacks that need 3 pluses to hit. That is too bad. This combat's going to continue a little while longer, especially considering that the Cleric Grodvalka, also goes and misses. Not a great round considering Scabnose only has 1 wound remaining. In Scabnose's turn, he goes and casts Confuse on Brom Burgelmeister. I guess he really doesn't like that guy, so Brom's not going to be able to do anything next round. Fine, he wasn't doing anything anyway. And again, he misses Cleric Grodvalka. Okay, back to the power phase. We roll a 4. We try for a bless on Cerset, but we don't get it this time. Doesn't matter, he doesn't need it. Finally goes and takes that last wound away from Scabnose the Shaman. Now, we didn't actually kill him. In fact, we just wound him, and then Scabnose has to go and put on his Ring of Invisibility. So we roll a d6. On the roll of a 1, his card actually gets shuffled back into the event deck, so we could fight him again. Fortunately, we don't get that, so he just disappears into the darkness. We don't got to worry about that guy no more. We do get a magic item card from the magic card deck, and we get the Hammer of Hargon. That's... I'm not really sure about that one. So it's a magic weapon, so no questing item for Cerset. What happens with a Hammer of Hargon is that you can roll any number of d6s you want when you're rolling for damage. But if you roll any 1s or 2s, then no damage is caused. So I think this is kind of a bad magic item. I think it means you're really unlikely to cause any damage, especially if you roll even 2d6. But if you get really lucky and you throw a fistful of dice and none of them comes up 1s or 2s, there is a potential for just a gigantic amount of damage. Either way, I'm going to give it to Cleric Grodvalka. First off, he really only can use hammers and as hand-to-hand combat weapons. And if it really is a bad item, it might as well go for him because he's not going to be doing much in hand-to-hand combat anyway. Cleric Grodvalka still gets a turn. I move him a little bit towards the others. I was kind of in the impression that if I rolled double 1s, I wound everyone in base contact with me. I'm thinking of something else. That's not it. So I probably would have been better off just moving all the way to those other sleepy guys. I do fail my Ring of Jade heal again. So it's the next round because there's no monsters on the table right now. So we roll up a power number of 2. Good. It means we can kind of move on. We go back into formation. Cleric Grodvalka fails to heal again. And we go on to the next round. And we get the power phase and we roll a 1. So we get a new encounter and I roll up 7 giant spiders for this one. So since I rolled a 1 for the power phase, it gets really hard to bless anything, and sure enough, Cleric Grodvalka goes and fails that. So we're on to the hero phase, and I go and forget Brom Brogelmeister. I totally forget that he is awake at this point. Those guys both get up from their nap. Brom would be the one who goes first, but yes, he's still rubbing the sleepies out of his eyes. So we're going to move straight on to Dursus. Dursus is currently stuck between the Questing Knight and the Warrior Priest, but he can fire his pistol. So he goes and takes aim at one of those guys, but he goes and misses, which is a shame. Cerset is up next. He does real well. He kills 2 of the spiders in front of him. I go for a little bit of a risky move here. I'm going to try and get Cleric Grodvalka in the middle of those spiders to try and chop up as many of them, or I guess squish as many of them as he can, but he fails to break the pin, so he's stuck where he is, so he takes out his frustration by smashing that spider right in front of him into a messy pulp. So we're on to the monster phase, so all the spiders scuttle forward and attack. So I randomly determine whether the extra spider is going to attack Cerset or Cleric Grodvalka. Turns out he's going after the Bretonnian Questing Knight. So the first spider goes and attacks, and he manages to hit Cerset, and he webs him. Doesn't cause any damage, but now he's cocooned in a sticky mess of webs, which means that the second spider hits him automatically and causes the maximum 3 wounds. The last spider fails to hit Cleric Grodvalka, and we move on to the warrior phase. The new power number is 5, so no new encounters. Even though we have a high power number, the cleric manages to fail his bless, so we don't get any benefit from that. We're going to go on to the leader, the guy with the lantern. So Brom Brogelmeister, because I forgot about him last round, he does still have his pistol, so he can take aim and fire with that. He goes and blasts the spider off the boards. That's a little gold in his pockets. Cerset does break free from the webs. You've got to roll equal to or under your strength in order to do that. So he manages that, and he goes and kills one of the spiders because he's mad. Dursus reloads his pistol, and Cleric Grodvalka misses the spider in front of him and also fails his Ring of Jade heal yet again. It's been many turns in a row that I haven't gotten that heal to happen. It is just a little less than 50% chance to get one of those doubles, but I haven't hit it yet. Back to the monster phase, the spiders scuttle forward. Cerset is webbed again, which is too bad, but Cleric Grodvalka is a bit nimbler and gets missed. Then it's a new round. The power number is 3, so no new encounters. I also go and fail the bless again. Brom Brogelmeister goes and reloads his pistol. Cerset is stuck. He can't break free of the webs. Dursus fires his pistol. He goes and misses again, but Cleric Grodvalka is the hero we need in this moment. He goes and swings that big hammer of his and squishes both the spiders. So the encounter is over, thanks to Cleric Grodvalka, after everyone else had kind of botched their rolls. We get kind of a cool magic item. We get the Ring of Life, which brings a character back to full wounds. Once he gets put to 0 wounds, you roll a d6. On anything but a 1, he gets brought back up once per adventure, up to full wounds. That's a really nice magic item if I can hold on to it. So I give it to Brom Brogelmeister because he is the one who is the weakest, the one most likely to go to 0 wounds. So hopefully that'll keep him in the fight a little bit longer. Speaking of bringing people back to life, we're also going to go for the Ring of Jade healing. We're just going to try and heal Cleric Grodvalka, and I roll a double 1. So I finally get doubles on this, and instead I just hurt myself. So Cleric Grodvalka takes another 2 wounds. Cerset is still stuck in the webs, but we do get an exploration phase because my Imperial Noble has woken up, and there are no monsters on the table. So we go and peer down the corridor, and we find another T-junction. So again, this could be amazing or this could be terrible. In any event, Cerset can't move, but the rest of the group just kind of leaves him to his fate while we go explore. So we move off a little bit. Hopefully Cerset can go and catch up. The good news is that Cleric Grodvalka does finally get his Ring of Jade to work, and I get double 6s. Now, I couldn't heal Cerset because he is not on the same board section as me, but I do basically heal up the Cleric. New round, we roll a 4 for the power phase. We move up to the archway on the right. Cerset does manage to break free of the webs, and he tries to jog forward as best he can. Cleric Grodvalka also seems to have figured out how this Ring of Jade is working now, so he manages to heal Cerset for 3 points because he got a double 3. And in the exploration phase, we go and we find our first room. We find the Circle of Power. So we get a new round and the power score is 3, so we can go ahead and move into this room. Everyone lines up on the far side. Now, I like to keep everyone together because I don't like my guys getting surrounded when monsters come, and I know monsters are going to come. There are a number of ways that this can bite me. First off, I don't get as many opportunities to do the death blow attack if I'm rolling really well in my phase. Second off, there are some things that attack people that are clustered up. For example, the Barbarian, when he's swinging his sword, if people are nearby him, he can damage them. And there's something like this. So, warriors move into the circle of power, we draw what kind of monsters are lurking there, and we get 3 fanatics. I've never fought fanatics before. Again, they're part of the Lair of the Orc Lord expansion, or at least the card is. There's actually rules for them in the main Warhammer Quest rulebook. It's a little confusing as far as such things go. So, depending on what you're reading, the card or the description in the rulebook, and you really have to go over the description in the rulebook, they do appear to get an automatic attack, and it's a doozy. So, everyone in base to contact with Fanatic is going to take d6 plus 6 wounds in damage, modified for toughness but not armor. And that's not great because my guys kind of rely on their armor. And there's also a little bit of a question that I have as to whether everyone takes that for each fanatic that they are next to, or if you're next to a fanatic, doesn't matter how many, you just take d6 plus 6. There's not really an answer in the rule book. My thinking is that you just take d6 plus 6 damage if you're next to a fanatic, doesn't matter how many. That could easily be wrong, but what are you going to do? I'm playing this game with just myself. No one's here to correct me. And it's terrible enough. Dursus goes and takes 4 points of damage, Brom takes 5 wounds, Cerset takes 5, which is a lot, and I roll a 1 when I'm rolling against Cleric Grodvalka, and if you roll a 1 on damage for these fanatics, they go and strangle themselves with their ball and chain and just die. So that kind of helps. I did go and roll up to see what would happen if everyone takes d6 plus 6 wounds, and we just all die. We immediately get killed. All of my warriors are vaporized and the adventure's over. So I think even if that's not the way the rule is supposed to go, I think you should play it that way, because otherwise your people are all just dead. Anyway, it's a new round and the power score is 4 for this round, so no new encounter, and we get a decent chance of getting a bless, but Cleric Grodvalka messes it up anyway, so no blesses for us. Brom goes and swings with his rapier. He manages to hit the first time, but then caused no damage to the fanatic, which is kind of surprising because that thing is only toughness 3. But when you're doing d6 plus 1 damage, then a 1 or a 2, that'll mean no damage. But I did hit, so I do get to roll again. I hit again, and I managed to do 1 damage, which is kind of sad. And then finally I go and miss. So for the first time using this rapier, I am not too impressed. Cerset is up next, and he just misses. I really do not want to take d6 plus 6 wounds again. I need these guys to die. So I'm going to go for a little bit more of a complicated maneuver. Dursus is going to go. He's going to attempt to break the pin, and he's going to move into a position where he can deathblow these 2 guys. So he ducks under the whirling ball and chains, and he moves up behind those guys. And he does me proud by killing both of them. Great job, Witch Hunter. Cleric Grodvalka just moves a little bit, try and keep everyone next to each other. He fails his Ring of Jade heal check, which is not a great time to be doing that. We draw our treasure card, we get Flash Powder. I give that to Dursus because he's the hero this round. Flash Powder, you can use it at any time, and when you do, all your hit rolls against the monsters are at +1. It is use once and then discard though. But it's a brand new round, so we're moving on. We're kind of hurt now, and we have not gone through very many rooms. It took us forever to get through that first passageway, and it's just been slow going. And it's going to continue to be slow going because I roll another 1 for the power phase, and that means another encounter. We draw a card, and we get a single Minotaur. I draw a warrior counter to see who he's going to try and beat up, and I get Dursus. So I guess those were the Minotaur's pet fanatics, and he's really mad at Dursus for killing both of those guys, so he's going to try and stomp him into the dirt. Something to note here. So when I made the decks, obviously I put in the Lair of the Orc Lord cards, but I also took out 2 cards. I took out the D3 Minotaur cards, and I took out the Cave-In card. The Cave-In card is just a bad card. I'm not sure how it's supposed to be done. It looks like you draw it and just everyone dies. You're almost certainly not going to get away from it. So I just removed that from the deck. More controversially, I also removed the D3 Minotaurs card, and that is because I have found that if you manage to get 3 Minotaurs, you're just all gonna die. There's no surviving an attack against 3 Minotaurs, so I just take the card out because it is such a pain to run into that. 1 Minotaur is bad enough. So on to the Warriors phase. I do not manage to get my Bless off. We're going to start with Brom. He hits but doesn't cause any damage because the Minotaur is toughness 4, and I have to roll at least a 4 to even get a single point of damage through. But he gets to roll again and he just misses. So on to Cerset. Cerset does real well, and he manages to put 6 damage on the Minotaur. So then we go to Dursus, the Witch Hunter, and I have determined that if I don't kill this Minotaur real quickly, then there's a good chance that he is going to kill my Witch Hunter, and I do not like my odds of the Cleric being able to heal me, because this Ring of Jade is not working as well as I would have hoped. So we're going to burn a bunch of our magical amulets. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the Amulet of Alakadizur, which doesn't roll very well on the effect, and the Minotaur just loses an attack, but that is still very helpful. I'm also going to use the Amulet of Fury, which gives Dursus an extra attack. And I'm going to use the Amulet of Holy Fire, which blasts a big holy fireball at the Minotaur, which causes another 5 wounds. So Dursus has got his 2 attacks. I need some big numbers to come here. I unfortunately miss with 1 and then do only 1 point of damage with the second one. So that has not brought this Minotaur down. It's over to the Cleric to see if he can finish the guy off. I'm going to use that Hammer of Hargon because the Minotaur still has 4 wounds remaining. So I do go unhit, and so I'm going to take 2 dice just to make sure I kill him. I roll it, and I roll a 1 or a 2 on one of the dice, and I do no damage whatsoever. The bad thing is that the other die was a 6, so there's a chance that if I hadn't used the special magic hammer, I could have hit and just done 5 damage to this Minotaur as it was and killed him off, but instead I rolled 2 dice, and I get 0 damage. So it's the Minotaur's turn. He has reduced attacks because of one of the Witch Hunter's amulets. He does go and hit Dursus for 5 damage anyway, which hurts. But fortunately, the Warrior Priest did go and get the Ring of Jade to work right before then, and so Dursus had actually gotten healed for 5 right before then. So get healed 5, get taken away 5. It's all even. This might not be so bad. So it's a brand new turn. We roll for the power score and we get a 1 again. It's just not going real well. This time we draw Bogoth the Snotling. So Bogoth the Snotling is a special event in the Lair of the Orc Lord box. And what he does is he grabs the lantern from Braun Burgelmeister and he goes and runs off. So he runs as far away from the warriors as he can while not leaving any of them in the dark, which puts him all the way down at the end of that T section. And he's just going to dance around and tease my warriors. I'm not going to be able to advance. I'm not going to be able to explore any further until I get rid of this guy. He's just a pain. But first thing I have to do is take care of this Minotaur. So since I rolled a 1 for the power phase, it's unlikely I get a bless off. Sure enough, I don't. Braun again gets to go first because he's the leader. He rolls a hit, again does no damage, and then a miss. I am not impressed with this rapier. Fortunately, Cerset gets the job done, takes away the last 4 wounds from the Minotaur. It falls over and dies. We get the Talon of Death as a magic item. It's a real nice magic item. So once per adventure, you can use the Talon of Death to cause d6 wounds to every monster that you are adjacent to. No modifiers for toughness or armor. So it's real great with a frontline fighter who's going to be in the mix. I go ahead and give that to the leader, Brom. Hopefully he can go early, use the Talon, wipe out a bunch of people in contact, and then free up some actions for the rest of them. Unfortunately, Cerset and Brom have blocked the passageway, so Cleric Grodvalka and Dursus can't go and get Bogoth, so they're just going to move to the corner there and get ready to charge the little guy as soon as possible. Actually, they're not all going to charge, because if they all go into that T section, Bogoth then gets to run further away into the next room. Someone's going to have to stay in this particular room because Bogoth won't leave anyone in the dark, and the lantern always illuminates 2 board sections. So the board section that it's in and the board sections next to it. And of course, Cleric Grodvalka goes and fails his heal with the Ring of Jade again. So it's the warrior's turn again. The power score this round is 2. We again fail to get that bless off. Brom hasn't reloaded his gun from the last time that he fired it, so he's just going to go ahead and do that because I'd rather just shoot this snotling. Cerset is next. He advances on Bogoth. Dursus goes and runs forward and he's going to take a shot. Unfortunately, he misses. Cleric Grodvalka is going to stay with Brom, the Imperial Noble, and he's going to get his Ring of Jade to heal him for 4. New turn, and wouldn't you know it, we get another 1 for the power phase. I'm not sure how many I've rolled, but it's been a lot. So we get an event, and we get the Portcullis. Now, the Portcullis is supposed to slam behind the doorway that the characters just passed through, but it's a little bit weird since I've been going back and forth chasing after this snotling. So I decide that since if the Portcullis goes and separates my group, then we're just doomed. We're just not getting out of there unless I totally luck out and get the key for that right away. passageway. I figure I'm going to put it over in the passageway that everyone has gone through. So at the beginning of that T-section, the T-section archway from the first room. Now that's still really terrible because there's a 50-50 chance that the objective room is on the other side. So I may just be sitting around in a couple of dead ends trying to kill enough monsters to eventually get to that key. But before I can even think of that, I draw another event card immediately, and it is a trained squig with 2 herders. Well, this is kind of cool. Again, another Orc and Goblin event, and I haven't fought these guys before, so we'll see how it goes. Short answer is it goes real well. So, first thing first, I do manage to get that 6 for the Bless. So Cleric Grodvalka goes, and he actually puts the reroll to hit on Braum. I'm thinking that I'd rather keep him rerolling these rapier attacks rather than having just an extra attack. Again, I'm not sure it matters, but that's what I went with. Anyway, Braum does me proud and immediately kills the squig, which is the primary threat right now. He goes and turns his attention to the hunters, but he misses them. But that's what questing knights are for. So Cerset just goes, stomps back into the circle of power, and kills both of those guys neat as you please. So that's the end of that encounter. Bug-Off the Snotling has special rules, so I still get to draw treasure cards even if he's wandering around. And that's because he is not actually a monster, he's an event. Anyway, we get the Scroll of the Chimera, which is a one-use item that when you do it, all monsters are -2 to hit you until you roll a 1 or a 2 on the power phase, so that's real nice. Dursus is going to go ahead and get that. Speaking of Dursus, he draws his pistol and blasts Bog-Off in the kneecaps, and so Bog-Off drops a lantern and goes running off into the darkness. Everyone's so thrilled, that's probably why they gave him the Scroll of the Chimera on that one. He also gets like 150 gold for sending that guy packing. The good news is that if my guys manage to finish this adventure, we are going to get a lot of gold because we have fought a lot of stuff. And we have gotten some good magic items as well. In further good news, Cleric Grodvalka has got a little bit of a win streak going on, so he manages to heal 6 points on Cerset, and we move into the next round, and we roll a 1 again. So in the last 5 rounds, I've rolled 4 1s in the power phase. And this is the way Warhammer Quest goes. You can be doing real well, and then you just get these strings of bad numbers in the power phase, and it just wrecks you. And my group is separated right now. A couple of us are still hurt, and we get D6 orcs and D6 orc archers, and I go crazy on the dice. I roll up nearly the maximum. I get 5 orcs and 6 orc archers, and these guys are no joke. They're all weapon skill 3, and they all do D6 plus 3 damage, and the archers hit on 4s. They're actually really good archers. This is probably going to hurt really, really bad. But I start my turn like a hero. Cleric Grodvalka doesn't manage to get his blessing off. We go on to Braum, and he just misses right away, so he doesn't do any damage to the orc in front of him. Cerset goes, and Cerset misses as well. So those guys all hit on 3 pluses, but I just roll 1s and 2s. So we go over to Dursus. Dursus does manage to hit, but his weapon does D6 plus 3 damage. I roll a 1 on the wound roll, getting a total of 4. The orcs have a toughness of 4, so no damage to them. And Cleric Grodvalka just misses. And just to round out a perfect turn, he goes and fails his Ring of Jade heal. So, no damage whatsoever caused. This has been a bad round. So it's the monsters phase, and we start off attacking Braum. Braum's got 2 orcs fighting him, and he's going to take 6 points of damage, which really hurts. Cerset is also hit, but he takes no damage because he's basically got that toughness of 5 with his armor. Dursus gets hit for 2 points of damage, and this is all from the orc warriors. I haven't gotten to the archers yet. Cleric Grodvalka takes no damage from the orc fighting him. And then we go on to the orc archers, and they immediately go and down Braum Brogelmeister. So he goes to 0 wounds, but he's got that Ring of Life. So I roll a d6, I don't roll a 1, and so he is back up to full wounds, which is really good. Don't need to lose a character at this point. The archers don't manage to cause any wounds to Dursus or Cerset, but Cleric Grodvalka goes and takes a whole 5 points of damage. I told you, orcs are no joke. We are back to a new round, and we get a power score of 3. Cleric Grodvalka does go and manage to bless Cerset with an extra attack. We're going to start off with Braum. Braum is going to hit but cause no damage on the orc in front of him. He is going to hit a second time and going to go and do 2 points of damage. That doesn't quite kill him. He's got 1 hit point left, and then he goes and misses, and so that ends his attacks. Cerset goes, and again, I think that big bucket head of his slips down and he can't see from time to time. So with his 2 attacks, he again goes and manages to miss twice. Dursus manages the orc in front of him, the cleric misses in front of him, and of course, to round things out again, we go and fail his Ring of Jade heal check. So again, I haven't killed off a single one of these orcs, and I'm not looking forward to how much damage I'm going to take this next round. To start off, the newly back-to-life Brom Brogelmeister takes 2 points of damage from the Orc Warrior. Cerset is hit, but again takes no damage. At least, that big bucket helmet is keeping his head safe. Dursus is going to take 2 damage, and Cleric Grodvalka is going to take 4. And that's with everything. Warriors, archers, all that stuff. So my guys are still alive, but we are really hurt at this point. The next round rolls around and we get a 4 for the power of score, and Cleric Grodvalka decides to fail the Bless, which is not a good time to do this kind of thing. I need to get rid of some of these orcs or I'm just going to die here. But I do the opposite. I think it's late and I think that my dice have just gone home. They've turned in, they've gone to bed, they're all sleepy. Because Brom Brogelmeister, the Imperial Noble, goes and misses his opponent. Cerset goes and misses for like the 4th attack in a row. Dursus misses his opponent, which he's been doing a lot, and Cleric Grodvalka, although I don't expect a whole lot from him. Sure would have been nice if I had gotten 1 hit in there. No, he missed. So all of my guys across the board couldn't roll a 3 or a 4 to get those hits going. And of course, we fail our Ring of Jade heal. Again, that's like just under 50% chance, and it's just not going real well. The orcs swing back. Brom Brogelmeister takes a whole 6 points of damage, which definitely stings. Cleric Grodvalka takes 4. They finally manage to find a chink in Cerset's armor, and he takes 3 points of damage. And then the archers go and shoot with their bows. That was just the warriors there. And they just go and plug the Imperial Noble and the Warrior Priest full of arrows, and both those guys are brought down to 0 hit points and are bleeding out on the floor. And as anyone who does these sort of games, anyone who plays role-playing games or anything knows, the healer is always the first one to die. So I don't really have any option or any way to bring those guys back up because, of course, Dursus doesn't have his amulet that would allow him to heal anybody. So it's a new round. We get a power score of 6, which would have been great if I still had a cleric to cast Blesses. We're going to go to Cerset, and he's going to go and miss again, which is fantastic. Dursus goes, and he misses with his attack. It's over, guys. You're watching the death scene right now. The Orc Warriors just close in and try and beat up my guys. Dursus is still only fighting 1 regular Orc Warrior, and so he's only going to take 1 point of damage from that attack, but all the rest of the Orcs just circle around poor Cerset and just kick his head in, and he goes down to 0 hit points. And then the archers that can target Dursus put another 2 points of damage on him. Well, no point in saving magic items now, so Dursus goes and reads the Scroll of the Chimeras, so now everything has a -2 to hit him. A little bit too little too late as far as that goes. The power score is 2 for this next round. Dursus does manage to finally hit the orc in front of him, but only does 2 points of damage, not getting me where I need to go. The orc tries to strike him. The archers try to strike him. I've got a lot of attacks coming in. They do need 6s to hit. One of them does get through and causes 3 damage to poor Dursus. We're on to the next round. We roll a power score of 3. We're going to go to Dursus' attacks. He just misses. The writing's on the wall. Can't even finish off this one orc. The orcs haven't lost 1 guy. Fortunately, the Scroll of the Chimera is still working, so all those hits don't get through. I don't manage to roll a single 6 with all the orc attacks as they try and pile towards the door to try and get him. The nice thing is those archers are blocking the hallway, so at least those orc warriors aren't storming into me. It's a new round and we get a power score of 2. So there goes the Scroll of the Chimera. I think this might be it. But Dursus goes and strikes the orc in front of him, kills that guy, so he finally falls, and then he sees just this wave of orcs storming down the hallway, coming to get him, presumably over the bodies of his companions. Without the Scroll of the Chimera to protect him, Dursus is just a shot full of arrows, and he dies. And so that's it. That's the end of my first new adventure with this group, and it didn't work. It went a bit poorly. I went and checked the rest of the room cards in the passageway I was going, and sure enough, I had like 2 rooms to go and I would have gotten to the fire chasm. So I was absolutely on the right course, but the power scores just piled some hideous amounts of monsters into me, and I couldn't break through, and they just beat me down. Good for orcs. Being an orc and goblin player, I do appreciate when that happens, but it's a little bit rough. So the way this works is I do want to try and play this again. I do want to try and give this group another shot at it. I'm going to keep all the rolls that I've already done, save for the ones that you roll for every adventure. Basically, the favor on the questing knights. Like, that's the only thing that changes from game to game. So I'm going to give these guys another shot. Somehow they all managed to crawl down a hole or something like that and escape. It was an inglorious failure, but they do get to live to fight another day. I'm going to try another round with these guys. Hopefully that'll come to you before too soon. And if they die again, if they fail again, I'm going to try a group of bad guys. I'm going to take out the pit fighter, the chaos warrior, the barbarian, and maybe the wizard, call him like a chaos sorcerer. We're going to have some Norskins go and raid some dungeons and see if those guys do better. But in the event, this is how I remember Warhammer Quest. It is not an easy game. I've watched some battle reports from the new game that Games Workshop produces, and it's a lot easier. You get a much higher success rate. Same with games like Gloomhaven and everything. If you want to hit your head with a hammer for a good hour or so, I recommend the old Warhammer Quest. Great fun. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you on the next one.